All right, guys, we have a really big opportunity here at the Element Art Workshop. We have some pieces at Pacific Design Center in LA. I got a call from my rep. They've sold a couple of those pieces and they need a replacement piece in 4 days from now. So we have an art transporter coming to pick that piece up. Catch is we haven't built the piece yet. So I need to figure out in the next 4 days how we're going to put this thing together. We're going to use a material I've never worked with before, and we are going to use a process that I've never done before. So I'm really excited about the process. I have high hopes for it working out, but it's definitely going to come with its challenges. So stick around and we'll see if we can pull this off. So for this piece, we decided to use poplar on it, and it's a new material for me, something I haven't used before. And it's got this kind of green hue to some of the grain. It's a little bit frowned upon in the industry by woodworkers for that reason. It's not the prettiest thing to a lot of people, but I actually find it pretty nice. I did find out there's a way to alter that color with a little kind of a chemical treatment, DIY chemical treatment that you can use. I decided to use it. It's a great material to work with, and right now I'm just kind of organizing the grain and stacking these pieces up for glue up to fit each block size. So we have the templates that are all sized for each stone, and I'm just making a block that I can carve for each one. Next stage, while these are setting up, I'm going to leave these overnight, maybe halfway into the day tomorrow. It's super hot here right now, so I think this glue is going to dry pretty quickly, but we'll leave them at least into the day, midday tomorrow before we start carving. So this piece, the templating approach, was really different than what I'm used to using, which is kind of carving these rough, these big natural rough blocks of wood. And what the templating does is it allows you to kind of strategize how you're going to put the thing together. And that was a huge add to this kind of approach versus what I'm used to doing. Laying these out and then being able to figure out where those dowels are coming through. You can see I kind of lay out some, as much of those in a vertical, straight, plumb line as possible, and then some of them you just can't do that. So this allowed me to put those connections in and mark those blocks prior to cutting them out with a saw here, so that I could know exactly where those holes are going to need to be drilled so I can connect those blocks just the way I want them, and it really was a good way to do this. So I use this bandsaw quite a bit. Laguna bandsaw. It's been a fantastic part of the shop here. I use it for resawing lumber and cutting big pieces like this. It's just such a great tool. This has worked well for shaping these things. It really takes the time, dedication down quite a bit because I can rough cut these things out and get them pretty accurate, pretty close to what I want them before I actually shape them with a grinder. Drilling the holes on these pieces is always kind of fun. Using a big, I use an electrician's drill, right angle drill, and it's just powering through these with a big bit and just keeping it as straight as you can, using a little level and just making sure that those things are accurate. I find that pre-drilling them with a smaller bit to guide that larger auger is really helpful in keeping those things straight. They really do need to be pretty straight so that your dowels work out and everything sits the way you need it. Usually I'll have the top stone be convex and the receiving stone be concave for that joint, but in this case it's the opposite, and there's a whole reason behind that, which I can go into it at a little bit later. So here's stone number 6. Super simple, right? That is going to be a 1-inch hole exactly for that 1-inch all thread, so that threaded rod will go into this. This will be fixed with epoxy. It'll also be scored, and then this piece will essentially, that top piece will screw on to piece number 5. So always a fun part of this is carving them. In this case, I'm using a little chainsaw, a little Makita battery-powered chainsaw. It works for these smaller pieces like this, and kind of this wood it's relatively easy to carve. But it's always a lot of fun carving these and seeing them come to shape. And I'll do it in a multi-step process. Usually rough it out with the chainsaw, then I'll hit it with the cut-saw disc to smooth it over, and then finally you hit it with a sander, random orbital, multi-grit, and take it down to maybe 60 or 80, and then get it ready for shaping, and then ultimately I'll take it up to maybe 220, something like that. So we have the first stone roughed out, sanded to a 60 grit. This is basically just to give me a sense of what the finish will look like. And I'm pleasantly surprised, or pleasantly, yeah, I guess surprised. I like it a lot. I'm curious as to what the stones with a little more green in them are going to look like. But I think this is going to work out great for this application. So I'm excited about the overall. Next question will be, do we put a clear coat on this, sand this to 240, 320, and then put a clear coat on it? Or stain and then a clear coat? Or do we leave it the natural color? My daughter was just in here and took a peek at it, and she really liked it as it is. And I kind of agree. I'm tempted to leave it as it is, although I might get some fingerprints on it. It's so light that if I don't put a finish on it, it might want to stain over time. The nice part about that is you can just take a piece of sandpaper and sand anything off that, any stains. So I'm gonna work that out in my head while I'm making the rest of these. I have plenty of time sanding to think about things. And 1 down, 5 to go. Yeah, 5 more to go. All right, so sample time. Essentially what I'm going for with this piece, if I put this clear coat on it, and this is kind of a test to see if I want to do that, is to let the material speak for itself, because I really like the light color, and I want the stones on this piece to be really light in color. I don't want it to tint out too much, be red, yellow, whatnot. And so these are the options that I'm playing with. Rubio monocoat. It's a 2-part, oil in the accelerator. The old faithful bowling alley wax. I use this a lot on metal. Min wax, or Johnson sometimes it's called. I guess, I don't know if it's the same brand name. Another paste wax, similar products. Tried and True, which is a mix of linseed oil and beeswax. And then we have the old faithful tung oil, which I've been using for years. And this I'll often use on redwoods, so woods with a lot of red grain. This I had a feeling was going to tint this out a little bit too much. Here's what that looks like. Here's the tung oil, and it really brings out the yellows in this piece. While it's pretty, that's not what I'm after here, so that one's out. The min wax, which is a natural color, although it still has some tint in it. And that, again, brought out too much yellow. Although it's better than the tung oil, and I think better than the Tried and True, which is this one. It's a little more neutral. So if I didn't have this bowling alley wax, which is the one that seems to be the most neutral, I would probably go with the min wax. Here's the Rubio monocoat, which I was hoping was going to be the one, just because it's a bomber product, great finish. I was hoping that one would be the one, but it's too yellow. As you can see the difference between these two. Hopefully you can see that in the camera. How this is, look at the grain here. This is the natural color, while this is, really yellowed out. And that's just because it saturates more into the material, where the bowling alley wax is mostly a surface finish. It'll penetrate a little bit, especially in the heat we're in today. We're over 100 degrees today, so anything I put on there is going to get pretty liquid. And yeah, I think this one's the call for now. I'm going to try a couple other finishes, full clear coat, aerosol, spray on type of application, and maybe a couple of brush on clear coats to see if I like that. But I really like this because I can put multiple finishes on it. I can build it up. It's easily workable. It protects the wood. This is an indoor piece. If it were outdoor, it'd be a whole different ballgame. But because it's an indoor piece, I think this is the call, at least based on this test. All right, so for this piece, I'm going to use a piece of 1/4 inch plate for the base, and 20 inch to 24 inch diameter. And I'm just gonna cut it out on the CNC machine. So I'm gonna go cut a piece for that edge, and I'm gonna cut it a little bit longer than that, because when we roll this thing, and you'll see with the roller, we need a wing on either side so that it can roll through and hang on the last support that helps shape that thing. So I'll cut a piece about 10 inches on either side longer, so another 20 inches, so 95 inches. So we'll cut a piece of flat bar and we'll start rolling that. All right, so hopefully I got a decent angle here. This, if you haven't seen one, is a roller, and it's a steel roller. You usually use it for tubing. And this piece of flat bar, what we're going to use for the perimeter of that of the base, we want to roll this into that 24 inch diameter. This is it's really floppy. I haven't actually rolled something this thin. This is 3/16 by 1.5 inch hot rolled steel, and so I'm not actually sure if this is going to work. But what we're going to do is set these guides, these rollers, to the 1.5 inch width, which I think they are already set at. And we'll put our piece in there, and the way it works is you just crank this down onto your steel and you'll roll it back and forth. And each pass, you'll get a little bit more bend in the material. If it's tubing, we'll use it a lot of times for 1.5 inch square stock, for example, square tubing. And it's just, pass after pass, and eventually you can get a nice radius out of that piece. So we'll see if it works with something this thin. I have my doubts. This stuff's so thin that I'm tempted to just heat it up and roll it around that plate once I have that plate all cleaned up, and just call it good, which maybe we'll fall back on. But we'll see if this works just for the hell of doing it. So if we take this edge to this edge, you can see we have the straight section where it's not getting rolled. And we hold those in line. That'll give us a read on where we're at. And right now we're sitting at about 26 inches. So the question is, do we roll it again, or we pull that in? Can we correct this pretty easily during fabrication? Two connections, and I didn't want to try to do them at the same time. So this piece was epoxied, this dowel, this piece of all thread was epoxied into this piece first, let that epoxy set up. And then this, in the stacking stones configuration, this whole thing is going to be flipped over. So this is the second to last stone. So it's number 5 of 6. There'll be one sitting on top. So imagine this is flipped over. The trick was to get these two doweled together without making a huge mess of epoxy that's going to spill out between them. So I couldn't really dowel this. I couldn't set this in upside down. So I needed to reverse that and turn the whole thing upside down. So this dowel that was epoxy set into this piece dives into this one. I could fill that void, that hole with epoxy, and then have this come down and be able to control the spill out without it, you know, pouring over these. All right, that is a wrap on Strata. We made the deadline. Super psyched on the end result. It was a challenge, but the planning that went into this piece really helped it be a success. You know, I'm happy with the piece. And if you're happy with your art, no matter what you're doing, as long as you're happy with it, that's all that really matters in my opinion. So if you guys have any questions about this or comments, drop them down below. I love reading that stuff. You know, I love the feedback and input from other artists, other craftspeople, anyone that has any ideas on how this could be done differently. We're all learning constantly, especially me. So chime in and, you know, be a part of the process if you can, and appreciate you watching.